Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Family Matters. A very big thank you to you all for tuning in tonight. Now, I guess straight off the bat, you're wondering who's he and what's he, why is he talking? Well, my name is Darryn and this is Josie, and we will be hosting this Family Matters tonight. And our very dear Robert and Sharon, who you know and love, will be this time fielding the questions. So, hello, Robert and Sharon.
Hi, Darryn and Josie.
Darryn and Josie.
Nice of you to have us. Thanks for the invitation.
How does it feel to be on the other end of the stick tonight? Just asking.
It's a bit different, really. Yeah, just a bit different. A little bit more relaxed.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm not as relaxed, but hey. Now I'll carry on with my intro. Robert and Sharon, you have served us so well with this Family Matters over the several last months, and for that we are truly thankful. But what we also know is that you also have stuff to share. So what me and Josie thought we would do is we would approach you guys, and we did it a couple of months ago, and we thought I'd ask you if you'd like to come on and share one of your stories. And of course, here we are. It is indeed a pleasure to have you there sitting there. So Robert has decided that he would talk to us about burnout, and it's an episode that he had 6 years ago odd. It was quite a severe episode, and he suffered from chronic fatigue and many other symptoms which we will hear about. It really affected him. In fact, it really changed their life. So we are very interested to talk to them about what happened and certainly how God worked with them through this. Now, one more thing with Robert and Sharon, I know personally for me, they are the most vocal people and outspoken people about God working in their life. It's just everyday conversation for them when I'm talking to them. They always bring up about how God has done this and God has done that, and they've recognized God working. And prayer is always a big part of their life. So for that reason, I'm saying that this Family Matters, talking to Robert and Sharon, is going to be very interesting. So
you set the bar high.
Yeah. Now just prepare to be disappointed. Yeah.
So that's what we'll do. We'll start with a prayer.
Cool.
Our Father in heaven, we desire to come into your presence now with thanksgiving. We are so thankful for your caring and loving and guiding hand, having guided us so carefully tonight around this platform of Family Matters. This series of Family Matters, Father, has been a joy and a blessing to us all, and for that we are thankful. It has brought much encouragement to many, and we know that when we share with Robert and Sharon tonight, it will be no exception, and we would pray that we can talk to them about how you worked in their life, and hopefully all that wonderful information will come out and be a benefit to us all. Father, we pray that everything is done to your glory, and that we would honour your name. We would ask this in the name of your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, Bible reading. That's right, I remembered that. Now, I decided to go with one of Robert's ones that he chose because it's actually quite fitting, and it's actually just one verse. It's a punchy verse. It will come up tonight, there's no doubt about that. And here it is. It's found in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. I'm going to say it again because it's just one verse. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Well, I'm very interested to see how you're going to bring that verse out and how it's helped you in your journey, both Robert and Sharon. Well, I'm excited about this. So we start now, do we? Cool. Let's start. Well, our subject is burnout. Robert, I just want you straight off the bat can you just describe and define burnout?
Okay, I think I actually came out with a better definition than I had when I was talking to you earlier. A bit like a barbecue. If you've got a charcoal barbecue or a wood barbecue and you're burning, what you're doing is you're sticking on wood and you're burning that wood, and as that wood burns, it's producing heat, and because of that heat, you can cook your sausages and your steaks and whatever like that. But then what happens is that when the fire goes down, when the wood disappears, all of a sudden there's just no heat left and nothing's happening, and the barbecue's not able to do any work anymore. And I think that really sort of describes what was happening in me, as far as, you know, I had energy, I had I was burning, and everything was working, and I was busy, but then the energy ran out, and all of a sudden there's just nothing left, absolutely nothing. Yeah. So that's my definition of burnout, a picture.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a pretty vivid picture. In fact, you did change it, Robert, because you've talked to me in the past about the burnt out match, and I pre-prepared the burnt out match there. Just there, so for a visual aid for everybody. And I mean, perhaps you can't see that well, but I can see that. I'm looking at this burnt out match, and I'm seeing exactly what you're saying, is there's nothing left. And it's actually just a very, very lowly vision, Robert. And you're comparing yourself with this burnt out match. And so my next question is obvious. How did you honestly get to this low point? And what was it in the lead up to this?
Yeah, okay. It was I suppose I was actually quite busy over the few years previous to it. And I'd always been busy. I'd run the Sunday school. I'd done CYC. We were still involved in CYC. At that stage, we were still involved in Sunday school, even though we weren't running both of them or either of them at the time. I was on ABs. I was writing and sending thinky things twice a week, or writing every day, sending thinky things twice a week, doing marriage moments. I'd spoken overseas about 5 times in the previous couple of years, as well as numerous places around New Zealand, and every few weeks at the meeting, playing the piano, and then on top of that, working. And as well as that, I was actually trying to set up a family centre and cafe as well at the same time. So it was sort of a bit of a busy time, really. Yeah.
Quite a busy time.
And there was family and marriage, and and trying to keep the house in upright condition and things like that. Changing the oil on the car, and all the other regular things that you have to do. So yeah, and then one day, I'd had my weekend planned out. We had quite a busy ecclesial weekend. I knew what was happening, and I knew that I could cope with this certain level of activity. And then I discovered there was another activity on top of that, and that was a birthday party for someone else. And
2 birthdays.
Yeah, and then I discovered there was another birthday party on top of that, and that happened to be my one, which I wasn't actually anticipating. And so there were 2 extra activities in that particular weekend, and it just tipped me over the edge. That was it. I got home from that later on that night and sat on the bed and just started bawling and crying and shaking, and my brain just went completely fuzzy, and that was the end of normal life.
It sounds
Yeah.
very frightening as well. Just like, what is happening?
Yeah, it was quite frightening because I'd never experienced anything like that before.
Well, you'd been having a few warning symptoms really in the year or so before. Just a few little odd glitches that seemed to indicate something wasn't right, but then it would sort of, you know, get back to normal again, and you sort of ignore it and just keep going. But looking back, there were definitely warning signs that something was afoot, something wasn't right.
Yeah. And I remember going to the doctor at one stage and saying, look, you know, I just don't feel quite right. Couldn't put my finger on it, but what I could tell him this, I said, you know, I've been chopping firewood, and I said, I used to be able to just swing an axe for an hour at a time and not notice it. And now I said, I could just barely pick the axe up. And I said, you know, I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's not right. And he just sort of like, no, something, maybe, you know, we'll keep an eye on it, or whatever he said, you know. But
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, I'm exhausted just hearing that part of the story, Robert.
Sorry, don't burn out for the day.
Yeah, and you rattled that off just like so easily, all of that stuff, and I feel like I would have said 3 things, and that fills my life. But you were busy on another level, and you were doing it. So you mentioned the moment when it all went down, it all crashed around you, and the symptoms reduced you, the weeping, the crying. I just wanted to, what else was this burnt out Robert? What was he like? What were any more symptoms?
Yeah, huge anxiety, just really, like the heart pounds, and you just like really on edge. Your adrenaline's pumped up to as high as it'll possibly go. Another one that I found really hard to cope with, especially over the next few weeks and months, was the ability to filter, especially sound. And you know how when you're talking to someone, like even in a hall or whatever, you can have a whole lot of noise going on around you, and you can talk from one person to another, and you can filter out all the rest of the sound that's in the hall. You know, there might be kids banging on the piano, or there might be cars outside or whatever. I couldn't filter any of that. And so like we live on the edge of the motorway, or not far from the motorway, so we can always hear cars. And normally you can just filter that out, but I could hear cars all day, every day. Every single car I heard.
Wow.
And you know, every radio that was on, if it was, you know, every sound would just go in, and it was so frustrating. It's really tiring.
You had high emotional levels as well.
Extremely high emotional levels. Yeah.
In fact, going to the meeting you found really hard.
That was one of the hardest times, was going to the meeting, because I knew everyone loved me, and often the prayers would seem just so pointed to exactly what I needed. Yeah, sure.
Would set you off.
Set me off. Still does a little bit, but you know, you just can't control that anymore. And yeah, and also complete tiredness. Absolutely. Yeah. Just all you want to do is sleep. So even though I kept going to work through it, or mostly, you know, there was obviously quite a bit of time off, but I kept working through it. I would work, come home, sleep, eat dinner, sleep, get up, go to work, which felt like a total waste of life. Absolutely.
Well, compared to what you were, compared to the old Robert, who was this flat out of control, overlapping job person, I'm not talking about both of you here. And so it turns out that this affected you in such a way that you were so sensitive, and you're right on the edge, and anything else extra just tipped you over like really quick, really fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Horrible way. That must be a horrible way to live, actually. So really, really hard. Yeah, I can imagine that. I can only imagine. Yeah.
Did you? You were talking before about that there were signs in the year before, about the year before burnout happened. So can you tell us more about those signs, like looking back at what they were?
Yeah, you might be able to tell more. There were signs. We didn't realise. Well, I didn't realise what they were.
Yeah, I guess there were times where, like you described with the cutting of the wood, some just days or times where you just felt completely exhausted and just didn't know why you're dragging yourself around. And there must have been a few other things, because I remember Robert had been invited to speak in India, and during the few months before that, there'd been some health glitch that had gone on that made us think, oh, is everything okay, and is this really a wise thing to be doing? But then it sort of rectified itself, and then he thought, oh, okay, I'm okay, and off he went, and it was fine at the time. But yeah, there were just all those little signs along the way, and I couldn't describe them exactly now, apart from it seemed to be just some times of extreme exhaustion. And then, as I say, it would rectify itself and keep going. There was also, I would say, one of the identifying factors was the loss of joy.
Yeah.
That was a major factor, and you'd got to the point where, because he would get lots of emails in for thinky things and so on, that just became a big chore to answer, and he would just put it off and didn't want to do it. And it was like, what's happening? Why are you dragging your feet on this? Just do it. But it had become too big, and along with the loss of joy, it was like, it was too hard.
Yeah. So just an apology for anyone who's sent me emails over the years, and I haven't responded, and I should have responded. I'm so sorry, but it was just too hard. I'm sorry.
You're forgiven.
Yeah.
Me.
I mean, but you were the joy ambassador at PK, Robert, and seriously, if this knocked the joy out of you, then this is big. This is what I'm trying to say. It's a big thing, and poor Robert had lost his joy. So, yeah.
Actually, there was another symptom. Sorry, if I can just add another one, and it was just like that. I was feeling like I just wasn't getting a break. I was on a treadmill, and I just couldn't get off, and it was. I think that I had this question before I burnt out, and I was going around and I was asking people at our hall, at our meeting, the answer to this question. And my question was this: the priests and Levites were busiest on the Sabbath day, which they seemed to be because there was a lot more offerings and everything. I said, when did they get their Sabbath? Because I felt like I wasn't getting my rest. I was working 5 days a week, plus the evenings that I was doing, plus Saturday I would work around the house, and I would prepare for Sunday on Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday was the busiest day of the week. And I just and then Monday again, it's like, where do we get off this? And yeah, so that was just another symptom that I noticed, was like just that question coming to my attention, and I didn't actually get an answer to it. So if anyone's got one, that would be great.
Indeed.
So Sharon, while this is all going on, like how are you feeling? What's going on in your head while this is all unfolding?
Robert had always kind of been, my human rock. I'd always relied on him. He was the strong one. He was the one that, pulled me along and kept the equilibrium. And then all of a sudden that kind of turned on its head, and I was needing to now sort of be there and try and support him. And for the most part, he would just look as normal as possible and try to keep it all together. There'd just be times where obviously the wheels would fall off a bit more so than others, but and at those times it's kind of like we go but he was, as he said, trying to keep going to work, and it was just a complete change in lifestyle. He couldn't do speaking. He couldn't do the speaking appointments the same anymore. He found he couldn't pray. You know, if he was asked to pray a public prayer at the hall, he couldn't do that anymore.
I stopped doing that for ages because
just couldn't do it, couldn't handle that, the emotional side of it.
I would have just ended up a little puddle on the floor.
Which nobody would have enjoyed. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
dear.
but it, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time to mention this, but it raised some interesting questions. Like initially, I guess I was praying for Robert for healing and for this problem to be taken away. And it didn't happen like that. And 6 years down the track, he's still struggling with symptoms. But it raised another idea, actually, that really sometimes praying for healing is not what's going to serve us best. I mean, if he'd had that taken away from him in the early stages, we would never have learnt as much as what we have, having gone through it. And we got to the stage of going, we need to pray more about what do we do with this and how do we deal with it. And I think they became more pertinent as prayers in the end. Because it's, in many ways, it has been a blessing. There has been a lot to learn from it.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it, apart from that I didn't like it. But, you know, and I still don't, you know. But, yeah, it's been amazing the way God's worked through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's really actually a really interesting point about that healing thing, and it brings us off to the next question. Onto the next question. Actually, what was that healing process? I mean, we assume that things have got better, and we know they have. But as you just sort of mentioned, Sharon, you're not out of the woods yet, but things are getting better, right? And what has been sort of major contributors to the healing process?
Probably from my perspective, the big one is getting enough rest. So, you know, I make sure that I get to bed generally before 8:30 every night, apart from Monday nights lately. So yeah, generally in bed by 8:30 and get as much sleep as I can. I'm not scared anymore to take a nana nap.
Why would you say scared, Robert? I want to know about that.
Well, because you know it's not really a man thing to do, is it?
Correct. That was what I was trying to get out of you. It's not a manly thing to take a nap. I know that. Yep.
Yeah.
We need to man up and take a nap. That's what we need to do, Robert.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, carry on.
Yeah, being able to take a nap, to be able to have enough rest has really been major for me. But also just to slow down in, well, all the activity, obviously. That's most of that activity has had to go, at least reduce or whatever. So yeah, so slowing down a lot and enjoying the journey is another big thing that's really helped me with that, is just to slow down and go, yeah, I'll enjoy this moment.
And doing some gardening, you found quite
Gardening
therapeutic.
as well. Yeah.
Quite therapeutic to do the gardening.
In fact, I mean, there's a lot of people originally, you know, come up, you know, and offered help and all that sort of stuff. And actually, your parents, Josie, came one day, just knocked on the door, just turned up, and they had a gift, and they brought a tomato plant in a pot. And this was like a few weeks after my burnout had happened, and that was just fantastic. That was one of the best things that anyone did for me. And I put the tomato pot on the back deck, and I just looked after it and watched it grow and watered it and picked the tomatoes, and that was great. That was just so therapeutic, just to be able to sit there and essentially watch a tomato plant grow.
Wow.
That was amazing.
I have to say, Karis provided therapy as well by getting Robert to build her a aviary. She actually told him, she says, Dad, this is your therapy. So
Thank you, Karis. Give him a
yes,
project.
it's yeah. But yeah, little projects like that probably were quite therapeutic. Just being able to just not know with no sense of deadline with anything.
Yeah,
Just
no pressure.
no pressure, but you can just potter away at doing a little project and feel like yes, you can achieve something, and it might take ages, but you know it's doable, and this is something that's enjoyable.
A few months after my burnout, Jeremy and I made an octagonal outdoor table. But again, you know, at that stage, I could do basically an hour at a time. Just, you know, 1 hour and then go and have a rest. Then, you know, come back, maybe do another half hour later on that day and, you know, an hour the next day, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just little bit by little bit.
It's interesting because you said you were searching for the Sabbath, and where was it? And I think it sounds like you found it. Somehow you just forced it, you know, or God forced it into your life. Is that what?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And with it, the joy returned.
Yeah.
Wow. Good. That's what we needed.
Little bit by little bit, the joy returns. Just being able to have that rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if there's one thing we want people to take away from it, if you feel like your joy is being taken away from you, if you feel like you're on that treadmill, stop.
Stop. Get the rest that God says you need.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why he gave us, you know, 6 days work and 1 day rest. And it wasn't just a day so you can spend an hour at the meeting. It's a day so you can rest. And I know that's really hard in today's society and our culture in Auckland or any other city, but it's so important to have that rest and to get the rest that we need. And God gave it for us. When he spat Israel out of the land, he said, you know, I'm doing this because you haven't kept your Sabbaths and you've lost your joy. And therefore the land could enjoy its Sabbaths. And I sort of feel like God has gone, right, you've used all your Sabbaths, and now I'm going to get you to have a whole lot by force, you know. Maybe that's what he's doing with me as well.
In fact, the other day we were talking to you, you mentioned that you kind of instituted your own Sabbath, like come Friday night. Yeah, can you tell us about that?
You or me? Yeah, well, what Sharon sort of started this. She'd done a little bit of a study on the Sabbath. I wasn't really up to studying much at that stage. And she goes, well, actually, I think we should actually start keeping the Sabbath better. So on Friday night, 6 o'clock Friday night, we would have the candles lit on the table. The meal would be on the table. The dishes will have already been done, so apart from the plates that we're about to use. And we would all stop work. Anything we were doing, any work we were doing would stop by 6 o'clock. I'll tell you what, that was really neat. It is really neat to be able to go, right, we've got to get this done by 6 o'clock, rush, you know, as much as you need to do. And then 6 o'clock, you know, whether you're finished or not, it stops. And I'll tell you what, that is just so awesome. It's such a blessing to be able to do that. And then to sleep in the morning and go, you know, this is the day that the Lord has made. And enjoy it, you know. And yeah, okay, sure, I potted around the garden and I might have built a table and things like that, but it wasn't my usual regular work.
True.
In fact, I came up with 3 R's.
Yes.
Rest, relationships, and recreation. And I think that's a little picture of what a Sabbath rest could look like. You know, just to have some time that's dedicated to rest, recreation, and relationships.
That's really cool.
And it's been a real blessing to us.
Yes. So this healing process, I can see, is dominated by rest and your search for rest, and you managed to achieve that at home, and you had little projects to take your mind off it or whatever, and you were off meeting things as well. You went right off the program?
Yeah. Interestingly, just as my burnout came, we were sort of heading towards the last couple of months of an ecclesial plan, but I'd put myself on the Bible class plan for a Bible class series on joy, and knowing that I needed to work on joy myself because I was really struggling with that. And then my burnout came, and I had these four, six, I can't remember now. But
3 or 4.
yeah, I think it was more than 4, but anyway. So anyway, I had this series on joy that I did after my burnout, which was a real struggle, but it was actually one of the best things I could have done because it really set the tone for me for recovery or for getting through that burnout and growing through it. Yeah. Just even though it was hard, it was really, really beneficial.
Yeah. And we all benefited from that. That was when we first came up to Auckland, and you were right. I heard the whole series actually on joy. It was sort of the first thing I heard was Robert doing joy, and you know what? I could tell you now. I didn't know you were going through a burnout from that series at all. And it's amazing that you managed to deliver that to us all. We benefited. What about work?
Strength of God. Because it wasn't in my strength, that's for sure.
Yeah, you really drew a lot from God to get that out. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
What about work as well? You're obviously still working through all this. Did things change at work? Did you manage to get through that okay?
Yeah, there was, like I said, I had quite a few sick days over that period, and every now and then I still have the odd bad days where I just feel you can't work. But yeah, it was quite a trial. It was very hard work because the brain isn't actually working properly at the time. It's really hard to think. I've described it recently like a jar of jelly beans. So your brain sort of feels scrambled, and it's like if you imagine your brain as a jar of jelly beans, and all the jelly beans, Sharon thinks it's a stupid example, but anyway, all the jelly beans are layered in color order. So if you have a series of thoughts, you can follow around all the yellow jelly beans, and then it changes thought, and you can go into all the blue jelly beans, and they're easy to find. Well, my brain was like someone had taken that jar of jelly beans and shaken it, so that I had to actually, like if I had an orange jelly bean thought, that was supposed to follow through a whole lot of orange jelly bean processes, like make breakfast. So I've got to get the toast bread out. I've got to put it in the toaster. I've got to get the butter and the jam out and put it on a plate and eat my toast. This is a series of things. I actually had to go and find all the jelly beans scattered through my jelly bean jar to find it. To get to work through that process rather than you just going automatic. So work was really hard like that. It was really neat the way God worked in that though. I remember one day I arrived at work and I was just going, I don't think I could do it today. The brain just wasn't up to anything. I couldn't think. I was afraid I was going to make lots of mistakes, and I'm an estimator, and if I make mistakes, it costs big time. And anyway, we were just about to get a new machine at work, a new router, and we needed space, and a whole lot of the files that I used were in the workshop where this new router was going to go. And my boss says to me, that machine's arriving tomorrow, you've got to move all those files today. So there was a whole day's work in me taking all the files off the shelves, moving the shelves, and putting all the files back on the shelves in the right order. And it was just a matter of me picking up a file, carrying it to there, doing it repeat. And I survived that whole day at work. It was like, wow, that is amazing. How did anyone know that today was the day I needed to do that? Yeah. Another day, I remember, I'd never been out for, he'd never sent me out before to go for a drive anywhere. And he just goes, oh, Robert, I need you to pick up whatever it was. So off I went for a drive in the truck, in the work truck. And it just gave me that hour or so space to clear my head and get through the rest of the day. And I've worked like that so many times. It's just amazing. Just when you needed it.
Yeah, that is amazing that you can see like the little ways that God did give you strength, you know, even through those really tough times. Hey.
Yeah.
And the other note, you were mentioning some of the other small little miracles that happened along the way, like strength for work and stuff. Were there any other lessons that kind of stand out to you about what you've learnt throughout this process of recovery?
Probably the one probably the one that sort of comes out, a couple really, I think. One is that I've taken it as probably, rather than a struggle, a change of direction. And I've just sort of seen the way God's used this issue, this health issue, and other health issues that I've had, and incidents that where he's used them for his good. And that's why I really love that verse that you read, Darren. All things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. And yeah, so I think it's being able to see God change that direction. I mean, if it wasn't for the burnout, I wouldn't have been off all the stuff that I was doing in the ecclesia, and I wouldn't have had a little bit of extra time on my hands to be able to go, well, what can I do that I don't need a deadline for, and written a book. Probably seems a stupid thing to do during a burnout, but I needed to do something, but it was something you could do just as you could, and if you couldn't do it, you just didn't.
And that was quite therapeutic for you.
That was very good.
Yeah.
That was really helpful because it gave me that study. It gave me a God focus during it, which was fantastic. So yeah, looking at it to see God working through that. And there was another one I was going to mention too, but it's gone. The jelly bean moved.
I suppose on a bit of a side note, it created a void in as far as Robert's sense of purpose has always been in what he did in the ecclesia. And all of a sudden that sense of purpose had gone, and he was left wondering, so what's my role now? What is this, and obviously for a large part of it, he couldn't do anything anyway. So it's kind of like, all you've got to do is focus on rest. But then when you start to feel better, the question pops in again. So what's my role? What's my purpose? Everything I did before has been ably filled by other people. And so, that was part of the question as well. So where to from here, Lord? What's purpose look like now? And and I guess in many ways it becomes an ongoing question, but you just keep trusting that God's got it all under control, and that he gives you what you can cope with at any one time.
So yeah, that was the other one I was going to mention, was trusting in God. Just being able to go, let it all go, and just like, you're in charge. Whether I feel well or whether I don't, whether I can think or can't think, or whether I'm busy in the ecclesia or not, you're in control. And just let him.
Okay, attitude. Great attitude there. I've got one for you. This is a question, and I'm hoping to dig deep here. You can choose to answer this or not. I want to know this. The source of your burnout, to me, was busyness. But as it turns out, from what you're saying, you're really busy in the Lord. You're doing ecclesial activities, serving the meeting, serving God. That's the source of like quite a majority of your burnout. And you are now reduced in this burnout. And so I'm kind of asking, like, Are you even just remotely a little bit angry, a little bit put out by God? Because, hey, what you're doing is you're serving God, and yet he's reducing you to this. God, can you just give me some strength because I'm actually doing your work? Was there just a little bit of anger, perhaps put out by God at all, Robert, Sharon?
No. No, I like I said before, I really felt God was just using it to change, to help me change direction.
Right.
And yeah, he has a different plan. And I don't know what that plan is. Maybe it's something to do with family matters or writing a book, or maybe it's something that I haven't even noticed. Maybe I just needed to spend more time with Sharon and with the kids.
Maybe you just needed to learn how to schedule rest.
Yeah, maybe I'm still learning that as well. But yeah, I just saw it as a change of direction and God working in a different way, a new challenge, a new opportunity, really. And I think I actually said to you at one stage, didn't I? You know, this is actually quite exciting to see what God's got in store for us now.
Yeah. And how different is life looking for you? it's
very different. Very, very different to what it was. Yeah.
Sharon, your faith, was it pushed a little bit, affected in this in any way, seeing Robert reduced?
Yeah, I guess there are times where it certainly felt a bit scary, and we would kind of, I would kind of go, well, it's feeling really out of control now, Lord, and there'd be little panic moments of and so on. But you know, these would often be little temporary glitches, and then you know he'd find equilibrium again enough just to get up and move on. And there certainly has been other glitches along the way. I mean, more recently, he's had a severe bout of depression. I believe that this is one thing that can go hand in hand with burnout. And that, that was another little glitch along the way. And it's kind of like, well, what's with this? Why did this suddenly drop in out of the blue? It's sort of like, we thought he was almost on the road to being completely better. It felt like, he was getting energy back and, just was picking up momentum again, and then this depression dropped in out the blue, and then it's kind of like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, it set me back quite a long way, and that was just a few months ago.
So yes, sure, you do. You stop and you go, what's happening? But as Robert said, it is a matter of leaning on the rock and saying, God is in control, and even though I can't see where the end of this is, or even what's around tomorrow's corner, I've just got to keep holding on and trust, and keep telling myself that. Yeah, definitely. Robert's usually been stronger on that way than me. I probably have a little bit more wobbliness in that way, but he certainly
but then it was happening to me, so but different too.
It kind of goes to show that, like, when the going is good, how important it is to like get that oil in your lamp, doesn't it? So that if you do hit a rocky patch, that you've got that to fall back on.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're all promised rocky patches. You know, it's not a if, it's a when. When that rocky patch hits, or and if it's already hit once, it'll hit again. And yeah, be prepared for that. Build up your faith so that you can cope with it. Yeah.
Do you think? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, with the depression one, that was one time I felt absolutely totally out of control. Most of the time that I had the burnout, the first 5 years, I suppose, where I had burnout, I didn't have depression, and it actually quite confused my doctor and psychologist. That they actually didn't know quite what to do with me, because I had burnout but not depression, and they usually go hand in hand. And then when I hit depression a few months ago, I went to the doctor again, and he says, "Oh, do you want some meds?" I went, "Yeah, no, not really," because he did give me some earlier, and it didn't do me any good at all. It was terrible. I said, "I'm going to try this for a while, what I was doing, and I'm just going to see if I can see this through, and I'm going to get some prayer for it." And the ABs prayed for me. I asked the ABs to pray for me, just like it says in James. And I'll tell you what was really neat. I went to the meeting that Sunday morning. I wasn't well, I can tell you that. And the ABs prayed for me, and I haven't had it again. It's not. I can't say it's been easy or anything like that, but the depression just
The darkness
lifted. And I'll tell you what, dark was dark. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Never want that again. That was really scary.
Wow. So you're a real advocate for what happened that Sunday. I believe you pulled the ABs aside and said, "Can you pray for me?" Can you? What did that look like exactly? It was just a sort of this huddle of prayer, was it?
Yeah, basically we all went into a little room, and Ron was standing next to me. He put his hands on me, which was really, really amazing. And the ABs all just went around the group and just prayed. I just sobbed the whole way through. So sorry about that, guys.
It's all right. They're not Southlanders, I don't think, so they probably handled it a bit better than old Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great. Yeah, and look, if you have, just for anyone out there who's got whatever depression or mental illness of whatever sort, or illness of whatever sort, it's what James says. Go to the elders and ask them to pray. You can't lose anything by doing that.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a little advert.
Yeah,
no, it's really powerful. I hope that you'd say that, actually, because I think that's really cool. And that wasn't actually that long ago, as you mentioned. So we're sort of, we can see that you're not completely out of the woods, but you're just so much more aware of your situation, aren't you? And could you say, though, when you get your energy back, and it probably happens from time to time, bursting energy now, what do you feel like doing with that now?
Oh, you got to fill it up. You got to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just
Get busy.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably see how quickly you can fall into the cycle again. Hey?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I do
hope
that we might be at the point where we can say we do need to schedule in more rest time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're way more aware of the whole situation, and you can kind of dominate a little bit and take control, like you were saying before. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And just watching the warning signs. I guess another one of those things, like, Robert has always had music. He's loved music. He's always just sat down at the piano or the guitar and played something, or created music or singing. He's always had music there, but music was one of the things that disappeared with the burnout as well.
That just went. I couldn't. I've always had music going around in my head all the time. And when I had my burnout, it just disappeared, and it's slowly coming back, but it's very painfully slowly.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Well, finally then, what advice would you give to all those busy people out there, based on what you've been through? What advice would you give to us or anyone else who's listening about how to avoid a burnout?
Probably my biggest recommendation, well, let's start with my first one, would be to schedule and rest. And whatever way that looks like. We plan our diaries if you're going to write a list of things I'm going to do today, you're going to write, I'm going to do the dishes, I'm going to mow the lawn, I'm going to, you know, fix that back window, and I'm going to write my exhort, and I'm going to, you know, whatever, take the kids to the park and visit grandma, right? So that's your list of things to do. But in that list, you also need to have, I'm going to rest, or I'm going to read that book, or I'm going to, I don't know, maybe watch a movie, or I'm going to, I don't know, whatever it is, it's just something, you know, I'm going to sit in the garden for an hour, sit in the sun. I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to sit on the beach and do nothing. Something like that, or go for, or I'm going to go for a walk around One Tree Hill and just enjoy the day and just amble my way around and not power walk it just to get it done. And I'm going to stop and enjoy the little lambs as I go, and the daffodils and whatever. That's what I mean by actually scheduling and rest. Actually purposely doing something that says I am allowed to rest doing this.
Yeah.
And don't book your schedule up too tight. Allow yourself some margin in your life. You know, if you look at a book and you open a book up and it has no margins around the outside and no space between the paragraphs, you look at it and you go, oh, that's just way too hard. And you don't want the book of your life to look like that. You need that space. And if something else happens, if you happen to have an extra birthday party or two in a weekend, you can cope with it if you've got some margins and scheduled and some rest. Yeah.
True. You're not going to just tip over the edge.
Yeah. Anything you recommend?
Yeah, well, yeah, rest is the main one.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Just taking time to be still and know I am God. I mean, God says that specifically. Be still and know I am God. And truly, when we're super busy, we don't actually have time to know God. Not really, not in that real be still sense. And it's so easy to ramp up everything and but there's things you miss.
And the other thing I would say too, sorry, one other thing, is that for any brothers who are in that same position, oh no, I've lost it. For any brothers who are in that same position, who are, you know, busy, who think that everything's going to stop if they stop. Actually, it doesn't. I stopped and everything carried on, which is a little bit humbling, really. You're sort of like, oh, okay, so the world didn't revolve around me. But anyway,
Wow.
But you know, it does carry on. If you say, look, I can't do it because I'm going to burn out if I do, it's not going to hurt anyone. Someone else will stand up and do it in your place, and that might actually be a good thing. And I often wonder whether that's one of the reasons why God took me out of the picture, because I was doing everything, and now there's a whole lot of other people who are doing stuff that I used to do. So yeah.
Well, that's actually a really amazing finishing point, Robert, because I think we'll try and wrap up. But you were missed, Robert, because when I first turned up to Auckland, you were there, you did your Joy series, and then you were gone. I was like, where's Robert? What happened to Robert? And and this is what was happening to you, and you were going through this, and it was quite a big thing for you, and so changed your life. So what you were going through and all the benefits that you learned through it have just been shared tonight, or some of it anyway, and we really appreciate that. And let's just think about this here. And this is the burnt match. Just look at it, think about it. This is what Robert was reduced to. This is what we can if we overdo it. And think about what Robert and Sharon have said tonight, just about scheduling rest. And the prayer and so many other things, the 3 R's. So yeah, we thank you so much for this advice, because burnout is probably something that could happen, well, probably does happen to all of us to some degree. Yours certainly was an extreme case, but we're so lucky to have you back, and in particular running this Family Matters. So I would actually like to say that as well. Thank you so much for Family Matters. Please keep it going, because we are loving it. We are benefiting from it hugely. You know, you are bringing real people with real stories to our living room, 7:30 on a Monday, and we can sit back and relax and benefit from it. And I know you've helped lots of people as a result. So we're temporary. Please come back and do this, and because we love what you're doing in Family Matters, and we're so stoked that you got a chance to share your story too. We're a part of it anyway.
Well, we're going to step out of role temporarily as well and say thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
For hosting tonight. We appreciate that, and you've done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
We will keep you on.
No, you're good.
No, you're all good.
Yeah.
So normal protocol, I'll just take over this little bit that Robert normally does. There's a coming up Family Matters. So the next week, which is the 28th of September, there'll be a break. But on the 5th of October, 2 weeks from now, Guard Your Heart is the title, and that will be with Robert and Sharon and Jeff Watson.
Can I just add on that one?
Yep.
Just because I didn't get this bit of information to you. Guard Your Heart arose out of a personal experience where Jeff enjoyed too much of watching streamed spy thrillers and crime mysteries on the internet, and ended up realizing how destructive it can be to spiritually to be overexposed to the worst in human nature. And a lot of people have sort of heard what Jeff's had to say on this and gone, yeah, we're struggling with that too. So
wow,
guarding your heart from even the things that don't seem too bad, you know. So
right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, cool.
Robert, we talked about this. We are hosting.
Couldn't help
And
himself.
then there'll be a break, and on the 19th of October, it's story time with Toby and Michelle Weidman.
Federman.
What?
Don't worry.
Federman.
Yeah.
So it looks like Weidman.
Federman.
So Federman. 26th of October, there's a break. The 2nd of November, the porn subject with Gary Steele, and then a break. And then the 16th of November, gender differences and marriage with Mark Vincent. So yeah, a very interesting rundown there in the next few months. Remember, Family Matters previous recordings are online, so you can get them on the PK Christadelphian website. And what's this here? Okay, cool. I think, Robert, to close, I'll ask you to pray.
Cool. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we've had tonight. We thank you for the life that you've given to us. We thank you for the joy that you've given to us. We thank you for the instructions that you've given to us, especially for the instructions of Sabbath and holidays and rest. And pray, Lord, that you would help us to make the most of those opportunities that you give us. Because so often we just want to carry on doing our own thing, or even things that we think are for you. And then we go overboard and we don't get the rest we need, and we're unable to focus on you. And we're unable to serve our brothers and sisters in the best way we can. And we're unable to build the relationships that we should if we had that rest. So please help us to take it. Help us to be the people you want us to be, so that you don't have to take us and break us, so that we can take the Sabbaths that you anticipated we should be taking in the first place. Please be with us and heal us, we pray. Guide us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 Amen.